Can atheists account for the uniformity of nature, the laws of logic, and ethics? I think they can. The transcendental argument for God's existence presents the idea of asking which presuppositions, atheist or Christian, can make sense of reality, knowledge, and ethics. I think the key for the atheist is properly defining what it is that they presuppose. Presuppositionalists presuppose the God of the Bible. But what do atheists presuppose? You might be tempted to answer matter, but not so fast. The key question is, specifically, what kind of matter? Presuppositionalists are very specific about which God they presuppose. It's not just any God. It's the God of the Bible with all his specific attributes. So the atheist needs to be specific too about what kind of matter they presuppose. If you ask a Christian why God is orderly, they will say, because it is his nature to be orderly. They might even say, that's why we can count on the uniformity of nature. But what can the atheists say about the uniformity of nature? They can say they presuppose matter that is by nature uniform in its interactions. That's the specific kind of matter they presuppose. And what about laws of logic? The atheist can say the laws of logic are descriptive, not prescriptive. And why does the universe always operate according to these descriptions? Because it is its nature to do so. That's the specific kind of matter the atheist is presupposing. The presuppositionalist wants to be very specific about the God they presuppose, but their argument depends on them insisting that the atheist cannot be equally specific about the matter they presuppose. The atheist should not allow the presuppositionalist to bully them into presupposing a general and unknown form of matter, the kind of matter that might change at any moment or behave contrary to the laws of logic. The atheist can account for the uniformity of nature and the laws of logic because of the specific nature of the matter they presuppose. The same way the presuppositionalist can only account for these things if they are allowed to specifically define the God they are presupposing. And what about ethics? The presuppositionalist wants to say the atheist is not justified in making ethical determinations that are binding on others, because atheistic morality is subjective. But can subjective morality be binding on others? I think it can. Here the atheist can claim that humanity has evolved to a point of collective understanding. We all recognize that we don't want to be harmed, and we are all willing to form societies that forbid the harming of individuals. The atheist can claim that we have evolved to a point where the collective human consciousness can be considered sane. And those who are sane can collectively agree to impose their collective understanding on others by force of law. This may not be the objective moral standard that Christians can claim, but it doesn't need to be. What the atheist has is an evolved, subjective morality that is binding on others. That's enough to account for ethics. And what about those gotcha questions, like, is it always wrong to kill an innocent person just for the fun of it? Here the atheist can reference the collective understanding and say, yes, it is always subjectively wrong. Thus, I think the classical presuppositional position offered by Bahnsen is refuted. But what about modern presuppositionalists, who claim that atheism reduces to absurdity because the atheist must use their reasoning to justify their reasoning? It is generally claimed that circular logic cannot prove a conclusion because, if the conclusion is doubted, the premise which leads to it will also be doubted. Here we see what the problem with circular logic usually is. The problem is that usually what you're trying to prove is in doubt, and since it's in doubt, simply referencing it will not do. But what happens when what we are proving is not in doubt? What happens when something has the power to authenticate itself beyond question? In such an instance, it is perfectly reasonable to refer to the subject in question as proof of itself. A fallacy is defined as incorrectness of reasoning or belief, erroneousness, and there is nothing incorrect about referencing something that authenticates itself as proof of itself. In such an instance, there is no incorrectness of reasoning or belief, no erroneousness. The atheist can claim that their memory, senses, and reasoning are self-authenticating. The presuppositionalist will claim that God authenticates himself and reveals things to us such that we can know them for certain. And the atheist can claim that their reasoning has evolved to a level such that they can know it is valid for certain. Since the atheist can claim human reason has evolved to a level that it is capable of self-authentication, they can use circular logic without committing a fallacy. Again, a fallacy is defined as incorrectness of reasoning or belief, erroneousness, and there is nothing incorrect about referencing something that authenticates itself as proof of itself. Thus, atheism uses reason to justify reason, but does not reduce to absurdity in doing so. The presuppositionalist will want to say that if circular reasoning is not always fallacious, then their proof of God is that he exists because he exists. The key, however, is that circular reasoning is always fallacious unless the subject being referenced has the power to authenticate itself. The presuppositionalist will claim that atheistic reasoning is in question, and the atheist will claim that God's existence is in question. The presuppositionalist will continue to insist that God is capable of authenticating himself, and the atheist can continue to insist that human reason is capable of authenticating itself. The presuppositionalist may want to say, but I can push it back a step. I presuppose a self-authenticating God who uses divine power to validate my reasoning. And the atheist can say, I can also push it back a step. I presuppose self-authenticating matter that evolves to validate my reasoning. So at best, the presuppositionalist can claim a draw with the atheist, not that they've reduced atheism to absurdity. I'd like to ask my atheist subscribers, especially those who have studied this subject, if they think I'm right. Do you think this refutes presuppositionalism? Thanks for watching. Take care.